Okay, we're recording on Progress. We are live on Facebook. Okay, Mastermind with Neil Schwartz and a very, very special guest, Josh Barker. Josh, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Woo! Woo! Where is Jesse with the applause? We got a soundboard. We got a soundboard the other day. I'm so excited, all the different sounds I can make. Anyway, it's very cool. Josh, very excited to have you on board. And you know, we had an opportunity to catch up a few weeks ago when we got talking about this together. And when I'm really focused today with our teams, our agents, our sales associates on obsession to customer service. And I called Mike Ferry and I said, look, I need some people to speak on this subject. And he said, you don't need anybody else but Josh Barker.
Oh, that's nice to say. Thank you for sharing that.
He says, that's the guy that you want to talk on this subject.
Yeah, like 6 flags.
Before we get into that in a big way, let's bring our group here up to speed in a little bit of your real estate sales history. If you give me a little Reader's Digest version, you know, where you're working, how many years, et cetera, how you started in the industry. You just kind of bring us up to speed on that. That'd be great.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I came out of the Marines, went to college, and halfway through college, I got into real estate to help pay for it. Real estate turned out to be a much better option than my degree was going to provide me. So I stayed in real estate. So that was about 21, 22 years ago. It was 1999 when I got in. So and then I started off as an ISA for a broker here in town. And once I was licensed, I started selling homes. By about 2005, I was selling a couple hundred homes a year. I had one buyer's agent and myself and an administrative person, and that was great. Those were some good times, as we can all recall. And then my company actually made a transformation when the market slowed down because short sales became the path that I went. I didn't go the foreclosure route. I ended up making a decision early on that I go the short sale route because I thought that those clients would become future clients where the banks wouldn't be future clients. So I thought that would be a smart move. And so we went that direction. And what it did, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it taught us how to run at extremely high volumes because I jumped from 200 to 400 within just a couple of years and learned all the systems and the processes and all the things that were necessary to accommodate it. And then, kept grinding away and built it up to about 700 and I think it was 750, 800 deals right before I had retired. And it was myself and a team of eight other agents on my team that we did that production together. At the end there, I was listing about 340 homes, I think, in that last year. Selling 270 of them, and I had to go on about 450 appointments a year personally to do that. So that was my personal production, and then my team did the additional units. The other 500 deals were done by the other 8 agents on the team, and so it was a really good business. It worked well. I grinded really hard, worked hard, saved a lot of money, made a lot of investments. My passive cash flow grossly exceeded my monthly living expenses, and so when COVID hit and we had a sailboat sitting in Florida that I was already paying somebody to maintain for us, and my daughters from college were staring at me and eye to eye and saying, they were breaking up with their boyfriends, and I'm like, this is the perfect time. Let's go sailing. So let's take a bad thing and turn it into an amazing thing. And I did a once in a lifetime, I think, chance to jump on a sailboat and take off.
So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to come back and talk about the way you move this business up. Because it's amazing that you were able to do that. So you took your sailboat, you had learned all the sailing techniques. You were the captain of your own boat, correct?
Yeah. I bought the boat about 4 years ago. So we were, I'd already been through all the sailing schools and all that stuff. We had planned on doing this more frequently, and it's just that COVID provided this opening that I don't know if we would otherwise have.
Right. Okay. So did you transfer the company, sell the company, and then kind of with the idea that you were leaving that business?
Oh, yeah. No, I thought I'd be gone for 3 to 5 years. So we had another agent in town that was, gung ho and wanting to expand their business. And so we ended up converting our company into his company, and my team stayed in the building that we're in now. And the new company came in, and so they never even had to move a desk.
Wow.
And, I kept one employee on that was doing all of our referral business because of all those years of business. We had a lot of referrals still coming in. And so I just had a referral manager that ran all these referrals through our old sales team, which worked out really well. So I was still generating a great income unintentionally, but I was generating a great income passively through those referrals.
Wow, fantastic. Very, very cool. So you went on this trip, you took your family, you started down the Bahamas and just kind of enjoying yourself. On Facebook, I got to watch you guys do different things. It was very, very cool. I was living with you, trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing here. You're down there. But okay. So I stopped having my wife see what you were doing.
Yeah, that's probably smart. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And then there was some things that went on in your life because there's another aspect of you that, you've always been a generous man and a good person, a great dad, great husband. But there was another thing that happened in your life. You mind telling us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, we were, sailing through the Bahamas. We were in the Crooked Islands at this point when we got a phone call that we got intermittently because you're out sailing, so you don't get them too often. But we had a phone call. My 5-year-old son is adopted. We got him when he was a baby, and some of the people in MFO would probably remember when that happened because that was a big day, and Mike and I really celebrated that. But I got this phone call, and we were sailing through the Bahamas. We were in the Crooked Islands, and we're on our way to Grenada, which takes time. And we got this phone call. We were there, and the call was that my son, the birth mother and the birth father was pregnant again, and she was about to have a baby who was the full-blooded sister of my son. And they asked us if we wanted the baby because the baby was going to be given away to the county immediately and put out for adoption. And so my wife and I, literally looked at each other like, oh, wow, what do we do? So, I mean, I kind of knew instantly what my wife was going to do. It's just, I had to, within about 30 seconds, had to be like, okay, we're going another direction. So yeah, we ended up stopping there, turned the boat around, sailed back to Florida. It took some time because, on a sailboat, you have to wait for the wind to be in your favor, and got back to Florida, flew back to California. And now I have an 11-month-old baby girl.
Wow. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
And you decided, since you're home and you have an 11-month-old baby girl and a 5 or 6-year-old son.
Yeah.
And how old are the 2 older girls?
22. And she works here now. She's graduated from college. And then I have an 18-year-old daughter in college.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 18 and 22 and 5 years old and 11 months old.
Yep. Yep. We call it round 2. We're grandparents raising kids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I get it. I have 8 grandchildren myself.
Yep. So it's and God's good. We're grateful. And but I think what you're asking is like, well, how did I get back to the real estate piece? And
that's kind of where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Well, there is a dark side to me. That's for sure. And my dark side is that I can't stop. And part of the reason why we selected a sailboat was because a sailboat, you can't stop. There's constantly movement. There's constantly things that have to be done. You have to trim the sails constantly. It's a lot of work, right? So, therefore you're never bored. You could always trim the sail a little better, and so getting home, I was like, okay, well, this is pretty clear that, this is going to be the way it's going to be for a while. What next? And, I took some time to think through that. There were some other options that were available that I could have looked at, taking on a CEO capacity for a couple different things. And I just felt like this was I knew this better than anything else. I still had a lot of things that I was interested in doing. I think the transformation of this industry is pretty interesting. And I'd like to have a say in some of that. So I thought I'd come back in, and I would do it differently this time, though. I made the decision, or I should say my wife made the decision for me, that if I did it this time, it can't be built on my production again. It has to be built on the production of the agents and the people on our team. And so that was one of the commitments I had coming back in, was that The results that this company receives will become a direct link to what the agents are doing and how successful they are, instead of what Josh is capable of doing. Because I'm confident I could have gone back and listed a whole bunch of homes again, but it wouldn't have been any different than I had done before.
Right.
This allows me to grow, stretch, try something different and interesting. And that's kind of why I'm here.
Wow. Fantastic. Just what an amazing story. Amazing story. And it's on its second chapter. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're having a great time for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're young enough to do this. The kids are young enough. Your wife seems to be, rock solid with you. So
yeah, I'm lucky there.
Great.
Yep, it is.
And you saved some money along the way, even though you did buy a boat.
Well, it's interesting because of what happened with the market, right? My boat actually went up in value. So it was.
Oh, right. Good point.
Yeah, I didn't lose a lot of money there. I did because of the broker fees. You lose some money there, but no, it wasn't nearly as what it probably normally would have been.
Right. Oh, you sold the boat when you got home. So
Yep.
It's kind of like burning the ships for Cortez.
Yes.
You weren't going back?
No. Well, had that boat been on the West Coast, I wouldn't have sold it. But being that it's all the way in Florida, the logistics of flying, with little kids back and forth is just a nightmare. I just did the math fast and said that, we'll just buy another boat when we're ready to do it again.
Sure. Got it. Makes total sense. Fantastic. Really great story. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning, Josh. Okay. Sure. You came out of the military.
Yep.
What'd you do for the Marines?
I was in a reconnaissance unit, recon operator, long range reconnaissance.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So coming out of there, going to college, I think you said, and then trying to earn some money selling real estate. So you got started. I mean, very few people in their first year or two go from 0 to 200. Okay.
Yes. Well, I didn't do it in 1 year, but I got to that number by 2005. I was at 200 units a year.
So that was 6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years. Okay. So tell me the progression of that. How'd you start with that? Everybody's always interested in, how I get from point A to point B, et cetera.
Well, it's funny because I share a wall with the gentleman I'm about to reference, but my first broker, when I went into business, he hired me, and I was, like I said, I was an unlicensed agent working alongside of him at the moment. And then a few months later, I got my license. But the very first thing he did was he gave me Mike Ferry, at the time, tapes, superstar retreats from the mid 90s, and said, start listening to all these things because it's going to help you greatly in your career. So, I mean, I had that first 12 months, I was doing nothing but burning out these tapes nonstop of Mike Ferry and learning how to be a professional salesperson and, developing the skills and the scripts and the knowledge that was necessary to do that. In that first year, I think I was on, I don't remember what it was for sure, but it was somewhere around maybe 36 to 45 deals, somewhere in there. Most of it was buyer generated, and just running your butt off, trying to do everything you can to make a sale, but, when you're willing to do whatever it takes, you can make it happen. And I think that was probably what that I would describe as my personality back then, is that I was willing to do whatever it took to make it happen.
So can we talk about that just for a second, Josh? Because I hear agents all the time telling me they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to whatever the number is. Yeah. And then they're starving to death 3 months later, and you find that they're making 10, 15, 20 calls a day. Clearly, that's not whatever it takes.
No.
What's in your head that makes that different?
I was very used to taking orders. I was very accustomed to following a plan, or in the military call it standard operating procedure. Mm-hmm. Mike Ferry provided me with the standard operating procedure for a high producing agent, said, follow these steps. Here's what your outcome will be. It made perfect sense to me. I just followed it 100%. And so one of the things that Mike had said, and nobody's going to probably like to hear this, but it was, if you make 100 contacts today, conversations, you're going to reach 50 deals a year, no problem. And I remember him saying that in one of those tapes back then. And I was like, oh, cool. That's all I got to do. Then I'll stay here until I make 100 contacts today. And, I was at 8 a.m. until 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, venture at that time. I think for every 100 people that I tried to call, I'd probably have 25 conversations. You know,
Right.
it took
That
about,
sounds right. Uh-huh.
yeah, it took about 4 hours to accommodate that. And the outcome initially was no appointments, and then it started to get into a couple of appointments, and then before you know it, you've got a business. So that's what it did. I mean, and I would stay on the phone. I was like that for the first year. I mean, I started showing homes in the afternoon. I knew I was supposed to become a listing agent. 12 months into the business, that next year, that second year in real estate, I transferred away from being working with buyers at a high level and went right into the listing side. And
So what was the transition there? Were you role playing for the first year? Were you working on your listing presentation? Were you previewing property? What were you doing?
I was previewing a ton of property with buyers in that first year. So I think that was a very good tool for me, because I needed to learn what the inventory was and what people were willing to pay for it. And so showing homes that first year really lended to that.
Okay.
So then in the second year, when you start going on listing presentations, you have a very good feel for value at that point. Now I looked like I was 12 years old at the time. So, you know, you had to have a very convincing appointment or a presentation, because, you know, they had to really believe this kid could get it done. Right. I was working on the Mike Ferry script, 100% of it. I stuck to the script. The friends of mine that know me in this building now, that have known me that long, literally laugh when they think about the kind of person I was back then. Because I was right out of the Marines. I was a very intense person. And it took a lot of versatility and a lot of sales training and a lot of development on the communication side to kind of get a little softer. So I did have the advantage of being very direct. But I didn't have a lot of versatility. And so what I lacked in skill, I made up for with effort.
Good. Excellent. God, that's fantastic. So you're getting the listings. When did you start bringing in assistants, or did you do that right away?
Well, the office that I worked for that first year they were kind of forward thinking that way. So they already had a listing, or I'm sorry, an escrow manager. Excuse me. So I didn't have to handle my own transactions in that office.
Okay.
When I went out on my own, I obviously had to, by 2003, I owned my own company. I've owned my own company since then. But when I went out on my own, I did hire my first, full-time, closing manager that was on my team like that.
Got it. Perfect.
And then I had the next hire after that was a listing manager. And then years went on. The next hire after that was another closing manager, because the transactions were higher. And then the next hire after that was another listing manager, and it just kind of grew from there.
So did you anticipate the hires? A lot of top agents, that are right at the next step. So was that an anticipation and hired before you needed it or after you needed it?
Those first year or two, it was just I couldn't afford to do it before I needed it, so I think it was as I needed it.
Got it. Okay.
When my financial resources became large enough that I could be forward thinking with it, then I started hiring, anticipating for building for capacity, anticipating the production would be there. And I also learned that with my personality and the way that I did value customer service, I also realized that sometimes I wouldn't try to work as hard as I could have, because I knew that I couldn't provide the services at the level I wanted yet, because I didn't have a large enough staff yet.
Fascinating.
And so when I saw that as an issue, I was like, oh, I don't want that to happen. So I would start hiring people in advance so that I felt comfortable that when I went out and just started, being that rainmaker, that as those transactions came in, they were being provided good service. So it just became this habit. We're typically one person heavier at any given time than we ever need.
Got it.
And that's been a consistent thing that we've done as a company. And it provides some bandwidth too, and some redundancy. So when somebody thinks there's, it's time for them to move on to another opportunity, there's not a next day, pressure on the company, because we can simply move that extra redundancy we built into the company into that role.
Great. All right. Good stuff. Okay. So the business came from expireds, is for sale by owners. You got involved in short sales. How many short sales were you doing at the time?
I would say that we probably had, listed but not sold, maybe 40, 50 at a time, and then sold but not closed, another 50 at a time.
Got it.
Yeah. And that's where I learned how to scale sort systems fast, because all of a sudden, I went from, a few hundred deals a year, and then this short sale opportunity opened up. and not everybody knew what to do to support that. And systems are ultimately how you're going to support that.
Right.
Stacking that short sell packet. Some of you might know what I'm talking about when I say that, but stacking that and delivering it to a lender to review. There were some processes that had to be developed to do that, and that's when we really start figuring out the system side.
Got it. Great. Excellent. All right, let's fast forward to where we are today. And you're helping agents, you're bringing on people to sell houses. Do you train listing agents and buyer's agents?
Yep, I do. Right now we're at 15 agents on our team. We do still believe in specialization. So, I think that people that are focused on working with buyers should be staying in that lane. That's a good place to be. And those who are focused on listing homes should be focused on that. We do permit some crossover, but that's, again, in the best interest of the client. So if you're buying a home and you're also listing a home at the same time, a listing certified agent should be able to do both, just because it's easier on the client. And so that's that. Our company provides the majority of the listing appointments now. We set around 100 a month for our 3 listing agents on our team. And we also provide the majority of the buyer opportunities for our sales team.
So when you say you set 100 a month, do you have an inside sales team prospecting?
Yeah, I've got 4 ISAs that help to generate that.
Okay.
And those appointments are then scheduled on the calendars of the listing agents. And then the listing folders and listing packets are prepared, they're delivered, the agents go out, make the presentation, and everything's obviously tracked.
So do you look for a certain person to be a listing agent versus a buying agent?
Absolutely.
Can
Yeah.
you describe that to us?
Well, listing agents have I believe a requirement to have more training. Not only do you have to understand the market conditions at a high level and value at a high level, but I also believe you have to have a high level of contract proficiency and a legal mind. Because these are the types of transactions. The seller side of a transaction is really ultimately where most of the liability is held. And an inexperienced agent, no fault of their own, but an inexperienced agent could put a client or a seller in a pretty bad position legally and otherwise if they're not being provided with the right advice. And so, yeah, our most skilled agents tend to at least meet the minimum requirement. And then, of course, you have to be a good presenter and all the other things that go with it. But I am looking for knowledge in the market, contract proficiency, a legal mind, being able to help clients through that.
On the listing side?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep. On the buying side, it's different. Buying side, big smile, provide a lot of value and service, be optimistic all the time, educate them with the market, educate them with the tools and the systems, pre-qualifying and all that stuff, but have a great time. It's a different side of the business for sure.
Josh, I'm going to be a little bit selfish here for a second. Nobody else listen. Josh, how do you identify the listing agents you're talking about?
Well, the first thing that I'm looking for, again, is that they've got to have some real estate experience.
Okay.
They have to know their way around a contract because their clients are going to be being presented with those contracts. So they've got to know their way around that. They got to be savvy when it comes to negotiating. They've got to understand where the risks are in a contract, where a client might be put in a bad spot. From the surface, the personality style, they've got to be, they could be any one of the 4, but they've got to have an attractiveness to them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be looks, although, that doesn't hurt. But being an attractive person means that people want to respond to you. They want to engage with you, that when they're in your presence, they feel a little bit more optimistic about the situation or a little bit more confident about the choices they're making. And if that person can bring that to a conversation, that's somebody that I want to talk to. And not everybody has that, or not everybody's developed that skill set yet. But when you're meeting with sellers, understand that in almost every case, there's 3 or 4 different people being interviewed. And it's going to be the person that, has the skills, has the presentation, has that be attractive as a person. And the person has to feel like they're most connected with that agent. Because I think it's where connection is for a seller. I think when the seller feels connected and feels like this agent's gonna be able to deliver on what they need, that's where the yes comes from.
Fantastic. So how much you found this person? I guess, let me ask you this. You have, what'd you say, 4 or 5 people doing that?
On the listing side, I've got 3 listing agents right now on our team full-time.
And how many people does it take to go through before you find a keeper?
Well, I
For
mean,
you,
the company launched, the company launched 8 months ago. So, but I had another listing agent on my team before, and I'll answer for that. I never had to change them out. And I anticipate that as long as these people want to stay with us, as long as it continues to be a win for them, I don't see a need that I'm gonna have to change them out either. I think they're gonna do a great job.
Okay, got it. And what do they need to go through training wise to be the agent let's say they fit that criteria that you've talked about.
Sure.
What's the training look like for that person? And let me back up. That person right now is taking how many listings a month-ish?
On average, 15.
They're taking 15 listings a month, each
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Okay, tell me the training.
That's a good way. Yeah. One, you want to hear about it?
Yeah, I do. And I think everybody else does too.
Okay. So, well, one thing you said there that that kind of stuck in my mind is like, what did they have to go through? And I think the better question is, what do they have to continue going through? Because it's not a once event and then it's over. It's like these guys are in training all the time. So the first thing they had to do is be able to demonstrate to us on a regular basis their contract proficiency, like I said, that legal mind, but also understanding our listing presentation. Our listing presentation is a bit different than Mike Ferry's in the sense that ours is a lot more about what our system and what our process is, how we're going to deliver that value and that service, assuming they've already chosen us as the company they're going to work with. And so it is a bit different in that sense. And so they have to understand that presentation. They once a quarter spend between 1 week and 2 weeks every single day going through the presentations again, where we're having to present it to each other as a group. In fact, we just finished one this morning that this has been going since last Monday of last week. And it's every single morning. So, I mean, for them, they probably feel like it's an overkill. But for me, it's absolutely imperative because it's not only expensive to generate listing opportunities, but those conversion rates have a direct impact on this company's success. And they know that. And so we have to work on that script and that skill every single day. Each morning I meet with them for 15 minutes. We do sales training with them every day. And then I spend about 5 to 10 minutes each day with the listing agents talking through objection handlers, any issues they're running into when they're on the appointments that I'm trying to keep because I'm not in listing. I'm out there every day right now. So I need them to give me that feedback the public's saying about the market conditions and things like that so that I can make adjustments. Inventory that may or may not be selling, how to price property. We're working on that stuff every single day. And it's just like, I mean, if you think about any professional, whether you're an athlete or otherwise, it's not like those guys just go out on Sundays and play football. There's a practice all week long working up for the game.
Right.
And for us, we look at listing property the same way. We have to practice our craft throughout the week so that when we do go on those presentations, if they're going to be listing with somebody, they should be listing with us.
Makes total sense. So that's the role play practice part of it. What about the knowing the inventory and learning the inventory for pricing purposes? What do you put them through there?
So our agents are supposed to be previewing 5 properties per day. And they can, and they can do it by showing buyers or physically going out. Now our listing agents typically, and this is a concern for me sometimes because it's the wrong inventory, but they'll usually choose vacant properties to go see so they can see them faster.
Right.
But our buying agents, if they're out showing that day, they're previewing. Either way, they need to see 5 properties a day. That's how we get that level of knowledge of the market. If you look at our core values on the wall behind me back there, what it's going to say is number 1 is knowledge. And the only way you're gonna have knowledge is to go out there and actually get yourself educated on the market.
And you got to get out of the office to do that.
Oh yeah, don't be one-dimensional. You sit behind a computer all day, you're missing it. You're losing an edge. Right. If you don't go out and physically touch and feel and see the product that's in the market that you're serving in. Your clients are doing it. They know more than you if you're not doing it.
That's great. How different if any, what different things would you be telling a buyer's agent right now? I mean, you're having them preview. I suspect they're practicing their scripts and dialogues. They're learning some contract skills. Is there anything different, or is it just a different intensity or expectation on your part for the buyer's agent?
When you say that, I'm being sensitive to the challenge of finding products. When you say that, I'm thinking, I know agents are having a hard time, getting a competitive offer situation accepted.
Okay.
I don't know what, and people on this video, I'm not sure how many are experiencing that, but I know that's something that a lot of agents in the country are dealing with.
No, we're dealing.
What I remind the agents of all the time is that the listing agent on the other side of this deal is a human being. And that they want things to go well, and they want things to be easy. They don't want any issues either in their escrows, so that they can just enjoy a harmonious life with no problems, right?
Right.
And so when our buyer's agents are in conversation with listing agents, think of it from that perspective. Say things like, these buyers I'm working with, it's incredible how easy they are. They're so simple, they're so easy. They're not wanting a lot of anything from anybody. They just want to find a great home, and they don't care how much they have to pay for it. They're a piece of cake to work with. You just say things that make the listing agent realize, hey, if we choose this buyer, I don't have to do a lot of work. And I think that if you come from that reference when you're negotiating contracts, I think you'll find that your acceptance rate will go up, because ultimately your listing agents are going to have a huge influence on which offer the seller ultimately chooses. And I think that, don't forget that, as much as we don't want to admit that, that is really the truth. The listing agents get to usually have a big influence on what the seller does.
Gigantic. Absolutely. Very good. Question out there right now from one.
I have some questions.
Wait,
Actually, I have three questions.
One second, Ted. Let me just read this one question, and then we'll go to questions. Your listing agents prospect, number one?
Yes, they do. They have a commitment to making 5 contacts a day to their past clients and center of influence and people that they've done business with.
Okay, got it.
And once a week, they have to talk to the homes that they have listed, and once a week, they have to talk to the homes they have in escrow.
Okay, good. Do they negotiate the contracts and deal with repairs and requests?
They negotiate contracts. They might have some assistance from our listing management team on getting a DocuSign back from a client and things like that. But the negotiation piece, they deal with that. And then once it's accepted, it's processed through the listing department, goes right to the closing department. When it's in the closing department, if the request for repair requires the agent's involvement, then the agent is requested to enter that conversation and provide that service and get them through that hurdle. Our agents are trained to show up when they can change the outcome of a negotiation or a situation, or if the client themselves, if we sense that the client themselves needs to have that extra hug, then in both of those cases, the agent's going to show up. Otherwise, it just keeps processing through the departments, and agents don't have to get involved other than the customer service call they do once a week of, hey, Neil, it's Josh. Just again, congratulate you guys on the home. Do you have any questions at all? How our office doing for you? Is there anything we can do to help you? Great. Hey, by the way, who do you know that might want to take that smart move like you did and buy a home just like you guys, right?
Josh, speaking of that, do you make those calls yourself?
I do the calls that my commitment is that I'll about twice a week call customers that we're currently working with, and then just introduce myself as the owner of the company, ask them if they have a few minutes, and ask some questions around how the service is being provided from our company. So that's a piece of what I'll do. And then I still have my inner circle of 100 people that I still communicate with on a regular basis. And those folks have large databases of these are stockbrokers, attorneys, CPAs, professionals that have contact with the public. Because I'm trying to keep that relationship established where they'll still refer their clients to our company.
Got it. Okay, great. And the last question, and then we'll open up to the group, is how much different is what you're doing in your listing presentation and teaching your people than we were working for Mike Ferry? And I guess what I would ask you is, because you are such a giant force, your name, your organization, are you just doing statistics and kind of saying, why would you list with anyone else?
No, we wouldn't say anything like that. No. So without going into the presentation itself, we wouldn't have the time really to do it, but it is different than Mike Ferry. But the biggest difference is it's not that Mike Ferry's isn't a great presentation. It's just that because we are a team and because the services will be delivered by a team and not by an individual agent, we have to make sure to set up proper expectations. And we tailor those expectations into the presentation so that we can still have a 20-minute presentation. But the outcome is that when it's signed, they understand what to expect next. And so that's why it's a different presentation in that sense.
Okay.
Mike Ferry's presentation is an absolutely perfect presentation, I believe, for agents that are out there and producing and presenting. When you get into the team environment, if you're going to have a lot of additional services provided by other people, it's always wise to have those expectations set up front.
So what I think I'm hearing is when the listing agent walks away, the client doesn't expect only to hear from the listing agent, but they expect to hear from the team. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And it kind of relates to your point of the customer service thing. We have two things that we do really well. And one of them is that we set and manage expectations extremely well. And we could always be better. So I by no means think that we've arrived. We have a lot more to do and get better, but we end every conversation with every client every time with what to expect next. And so by doing that, we don't have to worry that the client is setting their own expectation that we're not aware of, and therefore we're letting them down. So if when we leave a listing appointment, they know what to expect next. When they speak with our listing team, when they get off the phone, they know what to expect next. When they're talking with the closing department and that call's coming to a conclusion, they'll know what to expect next. And that way we're constantly setting those expectations. So we're managing them instead of our clients setting those on us.
Right.
Yeah. And then the second piece of it was the NPS, that Net Promoter Score, I think you and I talked about a few weeks ago, where we evaluate service at different points in the transaction. So when we list a property within a week, we ask them to rate our service on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highly likely, how likely it is you'll continue to do business with us or refer friends and family to us. We ask it at the end of the inspection period for a buyer and a seller. And then we also ask it at the close of escrow. And it's by one of our ISAs that does that. And by doing that, anytime it's less than a 9, the leadership team, me included, we're personally notified. And so when you're running 1,000 deals through this thing, if you're going to have 7 to 10 issues in a year, the leadership team will know about every one of them.
Interesting.
So, and it gives us a chance to fix it. Like, I'll give you a short example and we can go to questions, is that I had an agent last week that we were in escrow at the end of the inspection period. They gave us an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. Leadership team's notified. I looked at the issue, went to the listing agent and said, hey, I think this person needs an extra hug. Let's take care of that. Agent got on it, took care of it. We just got our NPS on this the other day. It was a closing NPS after close, 10 plus.
Wow.
So if we hadn't caught it, they might have been less than an 8 after close of escrow. And that, in a market, that could hurt your reputation. So.
Well, if you get, we've run into this ourselves, occasionally where you get a bad review in one of the things. And I mean, it really causes havoc. Ripples through the pages. This has been amazing, Josh, absolutely amazing. I got my head spinning with all kinds of different things. I want to open it up for questions, if we can do that for a little bit. Do you have a hard stop?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. All right. Tim, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I have two questions.
Tim, ask a question.
Josh, thank you for taking the time to meeting with us today. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So the agents that are going on, the first question is, agents going on 15 or getting 15 transactions a month or listings a month, how many appointments are they going on? What's their conversion rate?
It's probably closer to 40-ish right now. They're converting at between 40 and 50%. It's a problem. But part of the issue that we're running into, and it's something I'm having to make some adjustments to, is that we're catching sellers earlier in the decision process. So some of the techniques that we're using right now to locate sellers is far in advance of what we used to be able to do with cancels, expireds, and forced sell by owners, where most of those were, it wasn't if they were going to sell, it was just who they were going to sell with. Well, now we're capturing some of these folks when they're still in that decision-making process. And our choice is go on the appointment anyway. And that way, if they do make the decision, you're going to get the opportunity, understanding that they may ultimately decide the best choice is to not do anything. So it's showing up right now in our conversion rates. It was a tough pill for me to swallow because of our training with MFO. I'm like, I'm a complete total failure. How do I fix this? But the only way I could really fix it is to choose not to go on those types of appointments. I think that when our inventory as a local area and a state and a country starts to grow, then our minimum standard will probably tighten down again. But right now, when inventory is such an issue, we're much more flexible on those appointments. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's going on.
No, it absolutely does. Thank you. The other question is, what is your definition of customer service?
Providing value and service to a customer in the way that they want to provide it to them. And if they don't know what that is, you need to ask.
So is it a moving target, kind of a moving target for every customer?
Well, when you're running a larger operation, obviously you have these standard of service that you're providing all the time, and you call that your minimum standard. But then you have that standard that goes above that, which is meeting the client where they need to meet you, where you need to meet them at. And so if they need an extra handhold, if they need an extra hug, if they need that extra phone call, we want to be able to show up and provide that to them. And so being sensitive to that, there's a great book out there. You guys probably read it before, but Hug Your Customer. Have you read this book here? Go pick it up. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. But it just talks about the fact that, there's these little moments in every relationship in sales where you can become a more trusted resource for your client, and they'll enjoy the experience. And so we try to find that hug, if you can, for everybody. And we call it a hug. So clients kind of going off the rails a little bit. It's like, hey, let's go hug that person, not physically necessarily, but you know what I mean? You're giving them what they need to feel valued, to understand that, their concerns are our concerns, and let's get them moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks.
Neil, great questions, Tim. Josh, let me ask you to clarify that slightly. What I think you're saying is that you're trying to anticipate the need before the client understands they have the need. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, the longer you've been in the business, you'll know what some of that is, and that becomes your minimum standard. Like, we know that if more than one person is dealing, for example, in the closing department, we know that sellers typically can handle talking to one closing manager and the agent that's representing them, right? If you add that third person in there, we call it the blow up factor. Doesn't matter what happens. You add one more person to that conversation, and they think they're being handed off too much. It turns into a big issue, right? So because we've learned that over the years, that becomes a minimum standard for us, that our clients don't talk to more than one person other than the agent that's representing them at any given time, just to keep it simple. And so that's an example of anticipating that would be a problem if we didn't fix it up front. But if that client turned into a person that needed that extra handholding by the agent, we're willing to modify our process to have that agent meet them in their need.
Got it. So if we need to send a notary out to sign the documents, so be it.
So be it. Do whatever it takes.
Got it.
If we focus on just giving enough people high enough value and service, we'll have all of the things we've ever wanted. Will just be flowing to us. Just solve their problems first. Your problems will be solved as a result. What
percentage of your listings are selling, Josh? The listings 80%. You do get.
Yeah, it's probably 85% or more.
Okay. And the buyers that you're working, would you work with buyers, buyer contracts?
We don't currently. I do see an opportunity where I think we're going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many of the buyers you work with write contracts with you or buy houses with you guys?
Oh, I don't know how to quantify that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that we generate roughly, at the moment, we're generating about 1,200 leads as a company, and we're on track to do about 50 pendings per month from that. on the buying side. So,
you're going to do 600 buyer sales?
well, we're going to do about 500 buyer sales, and then we'll do
Okay.
about 500 listing sales is what our business plan outlines. That's what we're tracking for now.
Okay.
So it's,
you've ramped that, 1 second, you've ramped that up since when?
8 months
When
ago.
did 8 months
Yeah,
ago, you started at virtually zero,
Yep.
and you're moving that up in 12 months to 1,000 transactions closed?
Yeah, we're ramping it there. I mean, I wouldn't say we arrived.
Oh,
but
I
yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I get it. You know,
Yeah.
you might
Well,
miss
right
the
now we
target
have
by 4 or
100.
5.
I think we have 115 homes pending right now.
Good for you. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it's well, and I mean, but it's not. It's cool, but it's not necessarily realistic, I think, for most people, because I had a reputation in the market before, you know, and I came back into a market where people still knew me. And so I had that advantage, I think, that some people
Sure.
wouldn't.
I understand. I totally get what you're saying. Okay, other questions for Josh?
Yeah,
Please,
question.
Robert. Go ahead.
So question came in the chat box, Josh. When you first started prospecting and you were getting 100 contacts per day, what were the sources?
Most of it was just listed, just sold. That's how those contacts were so high. I was actually really terrified of forced sale by owners that first year. It actually took Ann Inc. at the time, Ann Baker now, to get me past that particular hurdle. I just had a hard time with FSBOs. But yeah, most of it was just listed, just sold at the time.
Quick question, Josh. Miguel here. First of all, Neil, I think there needs to be a part 2 to this. So if you two can figure that out, I mean, we're getting a ton of value. I can see a lot of smiley faces here. You said some pretty profound things, and it's a compliment. I'm gonna turn it into a question. You said, I did the math fast and I made a fast decision. And I think a lot of us on this call, me included, probably in first place, we get stuck with fear and making the wrong decision, and we run out of bandwidth, right? It's like all of a sudden there's a decision we didn't make. And so my question to you is this: what processes do you use to make this decision? Are you writing it down? Are you bouncing it off somebody else? Like, what is your process? And then what percentage is it usually the right decision versus the wrong decision? Fire away.
Whew. Well, I think Mike's probably the one that gave us the best example of this, is that tell me why it's going to benefit our clients first, and then I'm going to reverse engineer it from there. Okay. So when it comes to decision making in our office, I'm a very predictable leader in our company, because they already know that I'm going to first go to what's the very best thing that we can do for our client, and then we're just going to reverse engineer our solution away from that, or back off of that. So that makes it very easy for my whole office to make decisions on stuff. They just know that's where we're starting. And I don't want it to sound cliche, but boy, if you have that kind of consistency inside of your organization, and you're giving authority and license to your agents to behave the same way, you know, and it avoids a lot of issues that otherwise might be there. So that's the first thing. As far as the amount of decisions that are right or wrong, did you ask if is there a percentage to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the times we make the right decisions, but we're stuck on making a decision. Yeah.
Well, first, I do concern myself with big decisions that have big consequences. Not so much when the consequence is going to be on me. I'm not too worried about it. My biggest time that I have the hardest time is when I think that the decision I have to make might have a consequence for other people. And I think that's where I need to slow. That's where if I'm going to slow down in a decision, it's normally going to be around the impact it might have on other people, just making sure we just make the best decision we can. But I'm willing to live with whatever the consequences are, because part of the process is making a mistake. Part of the process is failing. Part of the process is not getting it right every time. And so you can't beat yourself up on those things, because everybody's going to make them. And that's where my piece comes from. You know, it's pretty, you know, you feel pretty good to realize that everybody makes mistakes. So just remind yourself of that real quick. If you're feeling, you know, like, gosh, I don't want to make a mistake. It's like everybody makes them. But when you start making decisions more frequently, and a percentage of those are actually working out the way you want, your confidence goes up too. And it doesn't become as challenging to make those decisions anymore, because, you know, you lose a few and you're going to win a lot more though.
Got it. Beautiful. Thank you, buddy.
Hey,
Sure.
Josh, Fred Salas, Irvine.
Hey.
Are any of your listing agents still using the 1-minute listing presentation?
No, well, I wouldn't want them to.
And why is that?
Because our listing presentation is around setting expectations of what to expect through the process. And you can't cover that in a minute, but you can cover it in 18 minutes. Not that they wouldn't sign a contract right away. I don't mind them listing it, but they better make sure they set those expectations properly either way. So if I walk into a house and the person says to me, hey, I want to list my home, I'm ready to go right now, I'm like, great, I'm going to sign the contract, but I'm going to sign it right then. As soon as I'm done signing it, though, I'm going to say, if you don't mind, I'd like to just spend a couple of quick minutes sharing with you what you could expect next. Would that be okay? And then I'll make sure that what you could expect going forward.
So the 1-minute presentation amplified with the expectations that they can have with your company and your listing.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Because whenever you're working inside of an organization, a team, the agents are going to get sucked right back in if you don't set the right expectations. And
Right.
our company's designed where different people provide different services in the company. So we can't have the agent get sucked in every time.
Thank you.
Great thought. Absolutely. Good job. Other questions for Josh? Go ahead, Gustavo.
Josh, quick question. First of all, how are you?
Great. Thank you.
How did you prepare your mind before the calls, before prospecting?
My motivation was passive cash flow. I wasn't turned on by the watches or the cars or some of the other things that a lot of my friends were really excited about. And I would have posted those up if they would have excited me. But I was fired up about passive cash flow. And so I made a lot of decisions on doing the things I didn't want to do on the days I didn't want to do them. I would literally recognize that if I didn't, I was basically saying this goal for passive cash flow was not that important to me. And that just was not acceptable. We had a clear path. We had a clear understanding of what my wife and I wanted to accomplish. I had her support and, we went to town on it, man. We didn't, there wasn't a day, I can tell you honestly, there just wasn't a day I didn't want to do it.
Fantastic. And if I may, I have a follow-up question. Let's say that you set up the appointment. Did you pre-qual right away or you let it go, pre-qual later?
Oftentimes it was easier to do the qualification on the phone right then and there because they're on the phone, you're on the phone, and it's a good time to get it done because everybody's busy. But I would always try to confirm the appointment if it was more than a day out. And then that would be a chance for me to ask a few additional qualifying questions if I needed to. Each one of our agents on the appointments that are set for them now, they are required to pre-qualify again. So they're already pre-qualified in their appointments, but they call them up again now and they say, hey, I just wanted to ask you a quick question, and they'll ask them something from the pre-qual so that they can confirm the appointment, make sure they've got rapport, and then go out on the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good question. Excellent. Jack Ma.
Oh, hi, Josh. Thank you for all the information. Quick question. So individual agent working with assistant and TC. So I actually caught today a client needing an extra hug. Usually once the listing is taken or escrow is open, a lot of the works are handed out to the assistant. How can I train the assistant so that they're more aware when there's that hug needed?
It's a constant reminder and training. Do you have kids?
Yes.
Okay, good. How old are they?
3.
3. All right. Do you tell them to do stuff?
Yes.
Do they always do it?
Nope.
Your employees will be the same way. So it's a constant reminder of the right things to do. And they'll forget because they're busy too, right? They're just trying to get through their day just like everybody else. And so you got to bring attention to those moments and share the significance and how that's going to really benefit them, because a disgruntled client makes their day tougher too.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can draw that correlation between, hey, being sensitive to when a client needs an extra hug, making sure you call it out for what it is, let's get people involved so they can move on. It's a big part of the process. It's just an ongoing thing. It's just, I think a lot of times agents think that, hey, I've told you, you should already know. It's like, when does that ever work? It never works. And it's not realistic for us to expect that either.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. I like your wall back there, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, the 11th month-old that you adopted, where would that baby have gone had you not taken that action? specifically? Foster
I'm sure another loving home, but not with her brother.
Right.
And that was, for us, I mean, we love her to death, and I've got another daughter, but for us, it was, I had a little boy now that too who's going to grow up as an only child too, right? So, there's so many wins in this thing for all of us to have her, but no, she would have went to, I'm sure, another loving family somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Denise, go ahead.
Hey, Josh.
Hi.
Great stuff. And my question to you is, your past clients is obviously what supports us and keeps our business going. So
Yeah.
what is it? What's the most effective thing you do that gives you the bigger return on your past clients?
Continuous communication after close of escrow. That I shared with you while I was sailing, I had that referral manager that was still available for when people called in. That was an ISA that worked for me for about 7 years, calling our past clients and center of influence every quarter. And so she's still with us today doing the same thing. And so when you have that kind of consistency with your past clients and that level of commitment to providing services to them, I mean, she was still, even that while I was gone, she was still referring, painters and electricians and plumbers and, people to help them with trusts if they needed a trust. And, she was doing all the things that we've always done. And so, Mike's always said that you can get, 10% or so, just if you do the minimum stuff that he suggests, 10% of your client base will come back to you. And we've had many years where it's way exceeded that.
Oh, awesome.
That's a great number. That's a great statement because you've got huge databases.
Oh yeah.
Josh, I may have missed it. What does ISA stand for?
Inside sales.
Yeah, inside sales. Yeah. Yeah, I apologize.
I have one more question. So what was the ultimate goal to make this cash flow? What was the reason behind it? What was the goal, and how did you create this? Did you write it down? Was it something that you've always had before, or was it a different goal after making this amount of money?
Well, Mike's talked about it for years, and so that was an influence for me. I think I took Think and Grow Rich that Napoleon Hill written and talked about putting what you want in writing. And so I ended up developing a business card size goal. And on one side of it was my personal life goals. So that would be about my relationships and my physical fitness and my spiritual side and those things. And the other side of that card was all money. And so I knew how many apartment buildings, how many multifamily, how many single family, how many commercial buildings. I knew all the stuff I needed to accumulate to reach the passive cash flow goal that I had. And I wrote that card out in 2004. Mike and I celebrated that a little bit. I think in 2016 is when I reached it. Is when I actually had achieved that goal. And then it was about setting goals after that. So it's everybody. The thing I would want to stress though is that whatever it is that you want, just make sure it's what you want and not what Josh wants or what Neil wants or anybody else. It's got to be something that excites you. Because if it doesn't turn you on and get you to do things on the days you don't want to do it, it's not going to work. So I've got friends that are not turned on by money at all. I love them to death. They're turned on by building orphanages in Africa, right? And not that they don't make money, but really what it's about is those orphanages in Africa that turn them on. And so I'm so inspired by people and the things that come up with that really get them going. And that's a fun thing to talk about.
That's for sure.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Okay. We have, go ahead, Chris.
Hi, thank you, Josh. Thank you so much for being here. And oh my gosh, it's a lot of knowledge. My one question is what do you see in the future of lead generation prospecting? Because I know you have a group of ISAs who are outreaching, and I love the way that you're trying to, especially in this market, you have to try to be there first to catch them in the process of thinking, not waiting for until they already made the decision. I thought that was like exactly on point. So what do you see the challenge with with prospecting now, and where do you see this in the future of real estate, and how we as single agents try to generate leads? Thank you.
Sure. Man, there's a lot in that question, bud. So, it's what you have a couple things that are changing, right? So when I came into the business, first of all, there was no do not call list at all. And so I didn't have that hurdle that agents have today, right?
Absolutely.
And I also didn't have the challenge that people have today of getting contact numbers necessarily. So it was a different time when we started out. So I did have the advantage now of building this big database where it was easier at that time to do it.
Yes.
Having said that, it's never been less expensive in my view, and Neil probably could attest to this. It's never been less expensive than it is today to generate leads. If you take Neil and you put him back 20 years ago, he was probably running black and white classifieds, right, to get that up desk phone to ring. And that came at a pretty high expense to Neil. Neil, would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And I don't know what it costed for a line in a paper in that market if you ran one, but I would imagine that it would have been pretty darn expensive to generate those opportunities, where today, generating leads and things like that, think of it this way. I don't like Zillow and Realtor.com. And just so you guys understand, I'm not on either one of those platforms. I think they're a competitor and I don't play. But you can generate leads other ways, and think of them as a higher quality call list. That's
Right.
all they are, though. They've raised their hand and they've demonstrated some level of interest in either buying or selling a property. And if you see them as a higher quality call list, now you take those skills that you guys are working on all the time and you bring those to that call list, and the conversion rates are going to go way up. And so that's your advantage that you have today that I didn't have back then, because when I started, I had to talk to a ton of people that had no intention of buying or selling to find somebody who did want to buy or sell, where today you can actually, you have to purchase some of this, but you can get your hands on lists of people that actually do want to do something. And that's a much more gratifying conversation, if you ask me.
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I'd be going after a call list of some sort.
Good job. Great question. Juan Carlos.
Quick question. Josh, how you doing?
Hi, Juan. Great to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. I think it's amazing what you're doing. And the thing that impacts me the more to me is that how do you get your ego out of the way? And you're still being hungry to do this.
How do I get my legal? Is that what you said?
Ego.
Yes.
Oh, my ego. Oh, gosh. Well, my wife would say my ego's not out of the way. I'll start there. So if she was standing here, she'd be punching you going, what's that guy talking about? You're terrible. I'll go back to Mike, right? Ego and profitability run in two opposite directions. And if you believe that, then whenever your ego does show up, you realize you're putting yourself at a financial risk. And it's time to change course right away. I so much enjoy talking with people because there's such an opportunity for me to learn in those situations. And if you show up in every conversation believing that there's something that you could learn in that conversation, wait for the the gold to drop out of the sky. It's going to happen, But if you go into a situation, doesn't matter who you're talking to, and you think that you're the smartest person in the room, you're done. You're not going to learn a thing. And so I love talking with newer agents. I really do. And the reason why is because they come from such a fresh perspective on things that sometimes I start looking at things differently than I would have otherwise looked at them, because I'm a jaded old broker. You know what I mean? So being hungry to learn will keep your ego in check.
No. Okay, sure.
Hold on. Where is this?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I don't know. I hope that answered your question. But
Yes, it did. Thank
All
you.
right. Really good stuff. All right. Everyone, let's unmute yourselves. Unmute yourselves, because this could go on days.
Thank you,
Woo! All right, Josh. Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Great job.
Thank you, Josh.
Josh, really
Legend.
good stuff. And you speak very well. You communicate at a very high level. We appreciate
thank you, Neil.
to no end. I mean, I've got all kinds of quotes I'm going to pull out of this. So If you see Josh all
Unbelievable.
over the internet, you'll understand why.
Yes, I watch every single video of Josh, every interview on YouTube.
So this has been great. Josh, what we do right now is we'll take a few minutes and kind of go around the room and ask the agents what they learned to kind of reinforce some of this stuff. So you're welcome to stay, but if you have a hard stop, we certainly understand it.
No, I think that'd be wonderful. I'd love to hear that, what you are doing. I'm gonna go ahead and mute it though, if that's okay, and I'll
Yeah.
at the same time.
Okay, what'd you guys learn today? This
Can
has
I go?
been amazing. Who, you want to go first, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. What I've learned is that with what he said with making the list, and he's right, is doing all your prospecting, the work that we do, trying to find to build up the better quality leads, whether of course your past clients and experience. And yes, that's a good point. But I'm talking about like prospecting and get those higher lists. And so it's just like gold mining, So basically, I thought the things I'm doing is not if I'm doing wrong or not, but I think this is just cleared out all that any things I had in the back of my head. So thank you. It's cleared.
Great, perfect.
Not fuzzy anymore. Thank you.
All right, excellent, good stuff. Who else wants to share what they learned today?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Juan Carlos.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I need to run to an appointment, but thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for everything.
All right, buddy, be well.
Hey, Neil, I'll go.
You know,
I'll go here really quick just a ton of wisdom coming out from from what he said. Did the math fast, make fast decisions. If you notice that he says he re-entered the business, not building himself up, but building up others, right? That's what he's doing now. And yet, isn't that what he's doing when he's talking about customer service, putting their needs before his needs? Isn't that how he's making his decisions, putting that decision that's best for the client before his? So in other words, he's not being selfish. He's putting other people first. And I just think that when we're in that space is when we have the most confidence. We feel good about ourselves. We feel good about other people. We put aside our pride and just work out of humility, right? So I just thought that was
well said, Miguel. Thank you. Good stuff. Ernest, did you have something?
Yeah, it's one of the last things that he said. Ego and profitability go in two different directions.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
That's just kind of mind-blowing right there, but it's true. It's true. So you could, if you look at it that way, it's an easy choice.
Yep. Perfect. Good stuff. Thank you. Robert.
Well, I want to, first of all, you mentioned that you had a bunch of quotes that you're going to use from him. And I actually wanted to thank him because I use a quote of his all the time on my coaching calls. He said one time on stage that when you go on a listing appointment, it's the most important part of the seller's day. They've been looking forward to it all week. They've been expecting you all week. They're peeking out the window. So they deserve your absolute best. So I always love that. But the two things, Neil, that I wrote down, there's a lot of little things, but the two main things I wrote down was number one is thinking big. And he made a comment that was a subtle comment, but just a perfect definition of thinking big when he said, well, I'll sell the boat and when we're ready again, we'll just buy another one. And it was just, that's just such a thinking big mentality of, yeah, it's fine. We'll just get another one. So I love that aspect of it. And the second thing was, this is not meant to be negative in any way, but you say this all the time, that there's nothing special about special people. And with him, he admitted, I came out and I was a driver. I had to learn versatility. And my first year was predominantly buyer sales. But he made 100 contacts a day and did the scripts and did everything like that. And I think it's really cool that we think guys like him, because of where they are today, he was just born with 50 listings. He just came in the business. He had all these listings, this and that, but he just put in the work. So the message to everyone else is you can do what he does. You can have what he has, but you have to commit the way that he committed. That's the key.
When you do what he does.
Yeah, when you do what he does.
That's the last part to that quote.
But that was just great that he, at the very beginning, he just mentioned that, he didn't come out a perfect real estate agent.
No, he's doing it. It's fantastic. Okay, other, go ahead.
Yeah, I hop on the call, the coaching call earlier. So, but the two things I put down is the set even better expectation for the client. That's something I've been doing, but there's always room to upgrade, especially when there's a team involved. And the other one, I love the idea about the survey. Different parts of the process, and that also help you catch up on if there's anything falling behind before the close, and then you get to correct that.
No, I think that's great, Jack. And you're doing that, working on that kind of stuff every single day. Congratulations. And it shows in the production, number 15 in the state of California. Good work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job, bud.
So far, that could change. So I'm kind of just.
I'm trying.
Well,
Yeah,
it is going to change because he's going to be number 14 next week, and then number 13 the week after that.
All right. Well, there you go, Jack. I love it. Okay, what else? What else we have?
I thought that everything around Josh Barker's presentation, it's all about customer service. And I think that the best customer service is calling the client before they call you. And he said that closing conversations with what to expect next and preparing your client for the expectation really levels up all the customer service that we provide.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I wrote down that 3 times.
For the continuous communication after the sale. That's gold right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, Fred. Thank you. All right. Who else? What else did we learn today?
Well, I just wanted to say that I just think he was remarkable. I felt like I was watching like a TED Talk. I totally agree with Neil that he just articulated himself so well. It was very powerful. And one thing that I noted was that, and affirm Neil and Robert for always putting these remarkable people in front of us. And I think it was LeBron James. It was something that we trained on a couple weeks ago or Magic Johnson, I can't recall, but he was talking about protecting the brand. And I heard that when Josh was talking about when he was growing and he wanted to make sure to keep that level of customer service. And that was his way of protecting the brand. And I always find that, when we listen to these interviews or read these books, that they're of these top producers or these greats, that they always are kind of speaking of the same thing. You always hear that the same principles that they're talking about. And I would say that he was one of the best ones that we've had, and I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Noel. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Great point.
Good stuff. What else did we learn today?
Neil, Josh triggered a thought in me that I heard yesterday when I was cycling with this guy who rides like 250 miles a week, right? He says, and Josh said it almost to the T. Either you got to want it, that's one mindset, which is what Josh was talking about. Hey, it's my goals, not Neil's goals, not Josh's goals. You gotta want it. But here's the thing. Either you got to want it or I want to do it. I want to do it because you got to want it. Could be a temporary pumped up after a seminar or after this phone call saying, yeah, I want it. But the question is, will I do it? And so we got to find the space that excites us. Miguel, I'm talking a lot to myself is what do I want to do? What is going to get me up out of bed? And that couldn't have been better said today.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Very, very cool. Okay, anyone else?
Oh,
So-
Preview 5 homes a day.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
How about
I really want to talk about that. Is actually what I got out of this, and you noticed I was really curious about this. And Robert, we need to get this transcribed so that I can go through those pieces. But what makes a great listing agent? He articulated it right down to the nth degree and what we needed to do to be that great listing agent. And if you want, you just take, we have the list, but you're welcome to listen to it here, because, you know, it's better if Josh says it than if I say it. You know, if Dad says it, it's not true, right? You know, got to find somebody from outside the world, but that's okay. I've come to grips with that. It's only taken me 40 years.
You know, that was like the best, one of the best questions I've ever had.
Thank
Unbelievable.
you. Yeah, it was,
Thank you.
I don't know where it came from. And it was, wow, I finally think I found somebody that could articulate what I needed to hear so that I can go do that. That's what I do, okay? That's what I do. And that's what we're going to do with that expectation. And if you want to be a great listing agent, that's what you have to do.
You have to.
Period. End of the conversation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Period. You got to know the contract. Blinding flash of the obvious. You got to know the inventory. Blinding flash of the obvious. You got to know what to say and how to say it at the highest level. Blinding flash of the obvious. Now, damn it, do it.
What about the attractiveness, Neil? I mean, you can unpack that.
Well, okay, look, sometimes we got to fake it till we make it. But, you know, we have this conversation all the time. Ladies, your nails have to be polished. Guys, your shoes have to be shined. You know, you got to be presentable. You don't have to have a $5,000 suit, but you got to look nice. Your tie can't have a lot of stains on it. Can't have any stains on it, but it for sure can't have a lot of stains on it. You guys, we're interviewing for a job that's going to pay us $15, $20, $25, $30, $50,000, and we go in with torn jeans. Come on.
And that's just the external experience. What about the conversation and making yourself approachable, making yourself feel safe, right?
Yeah.
That's
okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
Blood pressure will take it back a notch or two. All right. Anything else that we didn't hear yet that we need to hear?
I find, this is Chris. I'm sorry. I was going to say real quick that I find that it's not so much motivation, it's habits. I think that app motivation is like caffeine. It's the habits of doing the same routine every single day. You know, so it's making it a habit.
Yeah.
Very big for me now.
Great. Good job. Robert, was there something about Jack not coaching?
No, because you said he was 15, and I said, yeah, he's going to be 14 next week, 13 the week after that. And he said, oh gosh, that's accountability.
Yeah.
So I apologize for coaching all the time.
Sorry we called you out on that. No, we're not. Okay, everybody. I don't have anything else. Robert, we have a 1:30 caller.
We do. We have Miguel at 1:30 and Miguel at 2. We got Twee at 2:30. There's an open spot at 3 if anybody wants it. 3:30. We're going over 7 tips to negotiate better without saying a word. So some body language stuff at 3:30. So if anyone wants 3 o'clock, just let me know.
I got Fred at taking my 1:30 because he insisted. So
okay,
I'm not going to fight him on that. I'm going to show
Fred will take 1:30. Miguel's at 2. Twee's at 2:30. If anyone wants 3 o'clock, unmute yourself and have a ball.
All right.
So Miguel, did you want 3:30 then?
I might. I just
3.
have to see what. Yeah, I might take it. Yeah, but I'm going to keep. What's open after 2:30?
So after 3:30, you can take
3:34,
4:30.
4:35, 5:36, 6:37.
I got a date with my daughter at 6.
Okay, well, we're not going to have you miss a date with your daughter. No.
Nope. I can get in trouble for that.
No, not even a possibility.
Well, there you go. All right. Well then, Neil, thank you for setting that up.
Cherry sends me a text. If Dad says it, it doesn't count. That's right, Cherry.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it, man. That was
all right, you guys. All right, have a fabulous time. We'll get this posted in a couple of days, and I want to get some transcripts out of this one, Robert. So if you could send it over to Alea, and she can have it transcribed.
Okay.
All right. All right, everybody. Fantastic. I'm pumped.